Hello everyone and welcome. Today I am going to unbox this new kit from Stampin' Up. I absolutely loved this when I saw it online. It's a new release for January. They've actually got 3 kits out this month, but I've only purchased this one so far because when I saw this, I thought they made beautiful thank you cards, and you're going to see this in a little bit more detail. I have already taken the wrapping off and I just wanted to dive into it straight away. I couldn't wait. But look at the gorgeousness of these die cut pieces. I'm hoping you can see the foiling treatment on these. So there's some delicate cuts out of the leaf section here and a gold foil piece, and it's the same with these floral elements. And when I saw this, I thought they'd make beautiful cards, but I also want to create a layout with you on camera today, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a makeover. I love the white on white, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful, but I do want to try and do something a little bit different with this. Now, the care with packing this is next level because there is some tissue paper in between each of these to protect them so they're not falling apart and getting damaged. So there are 4 sheets, I think, of this beautiful foiling. 1, 2, 3, 4. I haven't examined this too much in detail, so I'm just going to open up the instructions to show you. Everything is laid out, so you make 1 set of floral cards and 1 set of leaf cards. And everything is contained in this box for you to be able to put everything together. These are such a good weight. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but they are a nice thick cardstock. And we've got some more die cuts in here. I think these ones go on a layer behind the floral elements. So there are some sheets of those and this gorgeous distressed feeling paper. I'm not sure if this is a watercolor paper, so I'm going to, when I push all these pieces out, I'm going to do a little bit of a test on this part here to see how, if you use a watercolor on this, to see how that reacts. These are beautiful. These are the sentiments. So there are a few different languages here. How fun would it be if you were sending a thank you card to a friend overseas to be able to put one in their language? I'm only going to use a few of these today, but I will be able to keep those in my stash for future thank you cards. Envelopes are so pretty. So I unwrapped it and just put it back in the box. I didn't actually get everything out to have a look at it, but they have the gold foil on the outside and they've got that same sort of texture that you've got with these circle elements. And I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to cut a couple of these envelopes down to use maybe as photo mats for my photos, for my layout, because it'll be gorgeous to have this bit of gold around it. There's some other rectangle pieces here. So the circles go behind the leaf and the rectangles go behind the floral element. And then we've got tear tape. So this is double-sided tape. It's very strong. And then we have some dimensionals. So these are little foam hexagons to raise things up. So this one, if you were taking this to a workshop, or even if you wanted to take it out and have a cup of coffee and just sit there and make this kit, you would be able to complete this very quickly and very easily, because basically it's just pushing these pieces out, layering them up, and adhering them. So this goes with this. I'm just going to move the box off to the side, spread things around a bit. Get my card base out. I'm doing a little bit of a sort. I'm going to put my adhesive off to the side. This is my rectangle piece for the floral one, and this is my circle for the leaf one. So I'm going to have 2 card bases. I've got a floral element. This is a base layer for the floral element. And you can see that these push out so easy, and they're nice and neat too. So this goes underneath this. I'm just looking at the photo. I'm not even looking at the instructions for this one. And then of course you would fold your card over in half. You would adhere this piece with the tear tape, and then you can layer the leaves, and it's great they're all in one piece, so you don't even have to worry about where you're going to tuck elements. And then I would pop these bits up onto foam tape, and then you can get a little thank you. Pop that on there and adhere it, and the card is done. I'm hoping that you can see all of these layers and how this all works. I'm not going to adhere anything yet because I want to give a little bit of a treatment to some of these pieces. But that is the floral element, fast and easy. I think you could put this kit together in under half an hour if you wanted to. So now I'm just going to do a dry fit of the leaf card so you can see how that comes together. Put all my other die cut pieces off to the side, ready to use later. I've got my card base. Can fold that over. I usually get out my bone folder so I can score that a little bit. The circle spot goes here. The leaf goes across like this, and I would put dimensionals up on the leaf elements. And then I can punch out a little thank you, put that on, and there are 2 cards made in no time at all, and the whole box could be done very quickly and very easily, because this is absolutely stunning and it's so easy to do. Now, if you wanted to change this up and make it into a wedding card or a sympathy card, you just wouldn't use the thank you. I would definitely use the black with some gold embossing. I think that just looks stunning with that treatment for the foiling here, and stamp a congratulations or even a birthday sentiment or something like this. Very flexible and easy to use across a whole lot of different occasions for an elegant looking card. So I'm going to go and do a little bit of an experiment and get out some inks, and I'm going to create a couple of cards with you, and I'm going to transfer those principles over to a scrapbook layout today. So I'm back after having a little bit of a play, and I've had a fun time creating with some texture and also with some watercolor that I'm going to try with these. So these are the originals of what the instructions show you to do. So it's white on white, and I do love that classic look. But what I've decided to do is add a little bit of texture with the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder. Now, when you hold it this way, you can see why it's called Soft Waves. It definitely gives you a water type feel, but I felt like this way it gave me more of a plant type feel with grass or with branches and tree trunks and things like that. So I thought it would be fun to do some embossing and put these behind these elements here. And I've chosen some fairly dark colors. So this is close to my heart's harbor. So you could use Stampin' Up's Night of Navy. And I don't really mind sometimes with black and blue together, but what I wanted to do was give this more of a classic feel. So I ran one through with black cardstock and put that on top, and that is quite dramatic. I love how this looks. Now I've cut this piece at 5 1/4 by 4 inches because the card bases for these are a standard A2 size, so they're 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 inches. But I really think that by using the embossing folder with this orientation, it works really well with the floral and the leaves. So this one here had 2 of these textured circles behind it. I'm going to take those away, and I'm going to put this piece here with it and lay that on top. And I do love how this looks with these 2 elements, but I really do want a circle spot here. Now, if I went with what the instructions are showing, I would have one here and one here. But to me, that's just a little bit too much. So I'm taking away that large one. I'm going to take away the small one as well. And I'm going to bring in one of these textured circle spots that come with the kit. And I've run this through with the embossing folder. And that is going to be the spot that goes here. I'm going to keep it in the same orientation. I don't want to turn it sideways. I want to keep it this way. So I'm going to adhere these together for my finished card. And then I'm going to add some of these pearlized enamel effects basics white onto these. So this is basically keeping the same structure of the card. I have just introduced a card panel here that is cut 1/4 inch smaller than the card base, and I do love how this looks. So I'm going to adhere those together off screen. So then I thought I would add some colour to these pieces, these die cut pieces that have the gold treatment to them. I've got that upside down. So now you can see the gold on those. So I have created one where I have used melon mambo and I've used old olive, and I've done a watercolor technique that I'm going to show you on camera because I'm going to use that on the scrapbook layout. So I had a little bit of an experiment. Now the leaves turned out really nicely with the old olive, and I was a little bit heavy-handed when it came to doing the watercolor treatment on these pieces here, and it's a little bit too heavy, but it still looks gorgeous. And I love the difference between what you get with a colored piece and a black and white type piece. So it's just giving you another option of what you can do with these pieces if you don't want to have white on white cards. So then I came in with Berry Burst, and this was one that just too much water got on there, and once you go to this stage you can't go back, so I had to make it work. So I've used the Old Olive treatment on the leaves. I'm going to do this, as I said, on camera with you for my scrapbooking layout. And when it came to the one that I did with Berry Burst, I was a little bit heavy-handed, so I needed to come around with a sponge dauber and ink up the edges, and I've inked that with the Berry Burst as well. So that's going to go on there. And these are really fun, bright, vivid cards. Now, if you wanted to have ones that were a little bit more muted, you would use a more muted ink, but I wanted to have a play with these lovely bright colors. So I'm putting this one on top. And then I've got my thank you here, and I've got a dimensional just off to the right edge because it's going to hang off the edge here. And I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive on the left, and that one's going to go across here. These two are a little bit different apart from the colors that I've used. This one, I've used the textured paper that is within the kit, the rectangle, and then I've just trimmed out a piece of limeade cardstock, which is a close to my heart color. So Granny Apple Green would work really well with this. Even though this watercolor look is with Old Olive, I think the colors work quite well together. So there hasn't been any additional treatment to this. I'm hoping that you can pick up on the texture that is in this paper. This one here, I used that textured rectangle and I ran it through the Soft Waves 3D embossing folder just to give it a little bit of added dimension here. This is with the pearlized enamel effects. Usually when I start something like this, I squeeze a little bit out so that I know that it's flowing properly. So you can see I've been having a little bit of a play with trying to work out what I was going to do. I have treated this piece with the 3D embossing folder, but I also squeezed a little bit of this out onto my mat and then rubbed it over the top with my finger, trying to get a little bit of a different effect. But it wasn't suitable for these cards, even though I actually love how this came out. Now, if you get peaks at all with this, if you get like little meringue peaks, you can just flick this from behind and that will help flatten them out just a little bit. But I love the white on white with this product. I keep forgetting what it's called because it's got a lot of names. Usually I'm used to using liquid pearls. This behaves very, very similar. Usually I'm used to saying liquid pearls, but this Enamel Effects Basic White, it really does dry a lot quicker than liquid pearls. So I'm going to put these aside for now, and then I'm going to work on the scrapbook layout with you and show you how I got this treatment to the leaves. So I've got my all-purpose mat down. I'm just going to use a piece of scratch paper here just so that I can do my stamping off onto. And all I need to do for this is get my ink. I'm going to press my block into here lightly and the ink will transfer, and depending on how hard you press will depend on how much ink's going to transfer. And then I'm just going to spritz this with some water. And what I need to do first is stamp that off, and you get a gorgeous rectangle. And I should probably get some watercolor paper out so that I can use this stamping off piece. So now I'm just going to go around and add some color to my leaves. Now you can see I was intentional with the first one. I made sure that where the ink was more concentrated, that I haven't used that. So now I can actually pick some of that off up before it dries. If I was using my all-purpose mat, it would stay wet a bit longer. But you can see how I've got that gorgeous delicate look to the leaves, and it looks like a watercolor effect where it's been splattered on. I can do exactly the same thing for this shaped leaf. This is the base for a floral element. So little spritz. This one I've loaded up with more ink. So I'm going to let more of that ink come off of that. Spread it out a little bit more. And I just need to go around the edges here and transfer some of this ink onto the leaf part of this design. So you can control it somewhat, but a light hand will give you that light look for the leaves, and a lighter color will give you a different effect with the florals that I did. So I just have 2 more of these to do. So I'm just going to stamp off a little bit. You can see if you stamp straight off when you've loaded up your ink pad, you get a great outline here of a square, and that's a great technique to use on pages and on cards as well. So I'm just taking a bit of that ink off and then going in once again. Now this is really quick and easy to do, and if you don't think you've got enough, you can always add more. So I'm just spritzing off camera because I don't want water to go everywhere here. I'm going to take quite a bit off of this just so I can add a little bit more. And you can see you get speckles as well, which I think looks fabulous on leaves. So I'm just going to set this one aside to dry and do exactly the same thing with my last leaf. So you can see when that's drying, it's coming back a little bit lighter, but that is exactly the look that I'm after. One thing I did want to show you, and I talked about it earlier on, this paper does react like watercolor. So I'm just going to show you how I did these little leaves. So I need to order some Stampin' Up watercolor paper because they do have some. Now I can use this as my little palette, or I can smoosh it into my mat here. So I've just got my water brush. All I did, a bit much there, is paint a little leaf so that the ink would flow. So I know you can't see that there, but if I touch my picked up ink from my water brush, it's going to bleed into where I've actually painted my leaf on. And then I can sort of play with it a little bit and spread the water out a little bit more and get some gorgeous leaves. So if you're into watercoloring and you don't mind fussy cutting, you can use the remnants of this to create some more leaves for your layouts. You could paint quite large leaves if you wanted to, but I just wanted to point that out because I have some leftover circle pieces and I might do a little bit of a play to see if I can create a watercolor type squash design for another project later on. But today I'm just going to show you the two styles of cards that I've shown you, and also the scrapbook layout which I'm about to put together with you on camera. Now I'm going to create an 8.5 by 11 scrapbook layout on camera with you today, but what I'm doing can easily translate to a 12 by 12 project. And I'm doing a wedding layout. Now I have cut my piece of black cardstock down because I wanted to have a white border going around the outside of it, but I want it to meet in the middle. So my black cardstock measures at 10.5 inches by 8.25 inches. And then, of course, my white base is 8.5 by 11. And that gives me a 1/4 inch border all the way around. Now, I've saved the basic white that's on the back of this by gutting this part out, and I've gone to the edges. Usually when we gut paper to save on it and to be able to use for photo mats and card projects and things, we go in a square or a rectangle on the inside. But for this one, I have come right to the edges. Now, when you go to line something up like this, when you've got it like that, it can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to bring in my score pal and show you my little trick. And I've shown this on camera before, but I have quite a few new subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. And I wanted to show you what I do for this. So basically I use my score pal. Now, if you've got a scoreboard that goes to 12 inches, this makes it really, really easy to adhere your pieces and know that you're lining things up absolutely perfectly. So I'm going to push it up on this edge. These are the two that sort of flop around a little bit. So I want to make sure that they're nicely flush with the top of my score pal. And then I'm going to bring in my paper because then I can go up to the edge and know that I'm going to get it all nice and straight. And I'm going to come in at 1/4 inches and come in and just put that down. Now that's not quite right. And because I'm using Stampin' Seal Plus, I need to not push too hard, and then I've got time to lift it off. So I'm going to get my head over this. I'm going to edit that bit out so I know that I've got it in exactly the right position. Okay, so I've got that nice and flush with the top. I can press that down and I know that my edges are nicely lined up, and that just saves me some paper from the back here. And I love being conservative with my paper sometimes when I know I go through quite a lot of it. I do this especially when I'm using white cardstock because it is really good to have extra white cardstock for die cutting, stamping images, and making photo mats and things like that. So now I'm going to lay out my photo mats, and these are the envelopes, and this is the same paper that the dots are made from, so they behave in exactly the same way if you want to use watercolor on them. All I did was put this in my trimmer and trim off the edges and around like that so that I've got my photo mat here. And what I need for my photo placings are a couple of landscape style and one portrait style. So I'm thinking this will work quite well across the 2 pages. Now you can definitely do this on a 12 by 12. I'm going to dry fit all of my leaves now. These I have dried off, and I think just the touches of the green on here are really beautiful, and the white flowers are going to match the bridal bouquet. I'm just trying to find the little leaves that go with this one. So this one just sits like that. This is a fairly large flower, so that's going to cover up a portion of this photo. Now if you're working on a 12 by 12 layout, you might want to push the flower over to the left a little bit more. And then I've got another leaf that I'm going to put in coming down this way. And I'm going to have part of that coming across the top of that photo. I do love when elements that I put on the page come across sections of the photo. Now I'm not putting my title in just yet. It's going to go up in this section here. And I think I'm going to cut that out of the Cricut with the couple's names on them, and I haven't quite got around to doing that yet before this video goes on. But I do have some of these circle spots that I'm going to use for my layout. Now I'm thinking I might put one under here, and that's going to be a journal box. And these other 2 I'm going to use to put as a little bit like a spotlight behind my leaves. So that's working quite well. And then I might put this one under here. So I think these 2 here will work really well with the wavy embossing folder. And that's my top piece for here. So what I'm actually thinking of doing is snipping these off so that I can bring them out just a little bit more from behind the floral element. Because they are tucked quite a bit under. So when I adhere this down, I'll have my floral element, and then this will extend the leaf section just a bit more here rather than having them totally hiding behind the die cut piece. I'm going to run these 2 pieces through my embossing folder. I'm just going to hold these up to the camera so you can see the texture that is applied to these. And I've still got the texture on this die cut piece from the actual paper itself. Now I did want to do this one because obviously there's going to be journaling going there. But I think this is going to work really nicely with this page. And I'm making sure the orientation is in a vertical position rather than a horizontal one. I'm really loving how this kit is so easily adapted to a scrapbook layout. And if you didn't want to make the cards at all, and if you're working on a wedding project, you could purchase this kit just to make several wedding layouts, because you do get quite a lot of pieces with this. So I've got a little bit of adhering to do before I do the next step, so I'll be back in a moment. So here are the cards all put together. I've adhered these down, and I've only put that top floral element up on foam tape. I thought that looked nice, a little bit separated from the base layer. And I love how that looks with the black and white treatment. I love the white on white look with this kit, but I think this just steps it up another level if you wanted a more dramatic look to it. And this one as well, I've got the textured piece with the 3D embossing on the circle as well as on the panel. And these are the cards that I showed you with the watercolor treatment. So I'll just put those off to the side, and I've still got the 4 envelopes available to put these in. Now, if you wanted to do a 12 by 12 layout and make the cards, you could save some of these as your photo spots. So the actual gold frame here measures at 4 1/8. So I would probably trim my photo down to either 4 inches or 3 7/8. And then across here, it measures at nearly 5 1/2. So I would cut my photo down to either 5 3/8 or 5 1/4, just so that you've got a nice gold border around them. And I think it's going to create a really elegant photo mat. Now these dots haven't quite dried, so I am going to be very careful with them and put them off to the side while I bring in the finished layout. and I love how this looks. I did have a little bit of a mishap with this. You can see they've splotched out a little bit, but I'm okay with that. It's still a handmade page and these things sort of happen, but I love how they add a little bit more texture to the layout. And I have just popped that centerpiece of the floral element up on foam tape on here and tucked in the leaves behind the flowers. And I've trimmed off the edges here just so that it looks like it comes across the edge here. I do love that look. But this is going to look stunning with the wedding photos that I've got in mind for this layout. And I know that you can see through a little bit with these circles here, but when I pop my photo in under here, you're not going to see those little pieces shining through there because it's going to be quite closely trimmed to the edge of where the gold foil is. The gold foiling on this is so pretty that I really wanted to use these as photo mats rather than as envelopes. So there you have it, my one kit, 3 ways. So instead of doing the white on white, I introduced a black mat and generally kept the same layout. And then I introduced some watercolor effects just to give a big splash of color with a bright, bold statement with Melon Mambo and Berry Burst. And then just some soft watercoloring to add to my scrapbook layout here so that it just gives a nice soft touch to the photos that I have in mind for this piece. And I think I'm going to order another one of these kits because with the contents of this box, I'm going to be able to make at least another 2 scrapbook layouts probably with what's inside there and some black paper and a little bit more of faux watercoloring technique with some ink and a block and some water. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. Happy crafting, everyone, and bye for now.